Dollars and Sense, the show that awakens the entrepreneurial mind and spirit to discover your business potential. Now, here are your hosts, Hunter Ford and Jason Hayes.
Good afternoon, Wilmington. Welcome to Dollars and Sense on Wilmington's Big Talker 106.7. Jason, welcome back to the show.
It's good to be back. It's always, well, let me take that back. It is great, super excited to be back, but it's always good to take some time with some family. But I definitely missed last week. It was hard for me to even listen to it without breaking down a couple of times.
It's hard to do it without you because I have gotten really comfortable having somebody pick up when that voice just disappears and I cannot come up with the next thing to say.
Well, I've seen the look of panic on your face a few times where you're just pointing at me and where I got a couple of cues in the back of my head. I was like, all right, this one's going to be the save this if this happens, but I've just known you long enough to see those cues even before this venture.
It was a really, really cool guest that we had last week with Reggie Barnes from Eastern Skateboard Supply, and it was an interesting show because I got to dabble a little bit more with controlling the board with our engineer not here, and it was a fun experience, and it was really cool to be able to continue the story on Facebook and have that little extra outtake that we were able to. It's a little bit more candid when you can do that extra little bit that's not part of the show.
And being from my side, I've actually just listening to it on the air, it seemed pretty seamless to me. So it was, I'm sure it was a treat to all the listeners out there that was listening to our show that it sounded like you felt pretty comfortable to me.
We're getting a little better. I mean, we've got about 13, 14 weeks under our belts, and you know, this little radio gig is kicking out for us pretty good. What do you think?
It's not that hard. I mean, I feel like we were pros after week 2. Well, that's just me. The good thing about being a part of a station like this is the giving back to the community. And for weeks now, and ever since that the Big Talker's been back on the air, they've been able to give back through the Big Talker Summers Tour Series. They've been able to raise thousands of dollars already for local nonprofits around through different businesses, a couple of pubs, restaurants. This past week, they were at Bill's Front Porch, and I had a good group out there. And then I know the after party, they always go over to Might as well and had a good time. Our tech, Nick, he was sharing with me a little bit earlier that he had maybe a little bit too much of a good time.
It's really cool that we've got people that support us and support the Back to Business Network tour, especially Amy that runs the what is it she does? She does a trivia thing over there. And those people, you don't have to be a business owner. You don't have to pass out a business card. You can just come out and network with people that are like-minded, that want to meet other people in Wilmington, that isn't strictly based on a political affiliation or a business affiliation. Just come out and have a good time and meet some new people.
Yeah, and it's always for a good cause, too. The people that I've been able to meet during these things, the story that they have and the passion that they have around giving back to the community is what's key. I mean, we all have that common goal in mind, and it wraps really to the story that we cater to with our show, Dollars and Senses. It's not always the cookie cutter, okay, what's your business about? Great, tell us your story, but really that life aspect of what brought that person to that moment and what their background is and really giving back.
And we found that a lot of these different business owners, in one of our last segments of every show, we kind of ask, what is something that you do that you're able to give back to? And each different business owner has been able to provide a really interesting answer that is really thoughtful and it comes from the heart. And it really does give an explanation of who they are as a person, because these different business owners worked really hard to start their businesses, and they found an opportunity to give that idea and that energy and that inspiration to the next person. And our guest today does a lot of that as well. So without further ado, we'd like to introduce Matt Davis from 2 different businesses, both Life Stage Films and Harvest Filmworks. Matt, welcome to the show.
What's up? Good to be here.
I had a feeling that you were going to he turned the hat backwards and he got comfortable. I thought the introduction was going to be exactly like that, but I'm excited to have you here.
Anyone that knows me, I'm always wearing a hat. It's usually backwards. I don't have to wear a suit to work, and I
envy you.
Yeah, I usually have a hat on because I have pretty long hair and I don't really want to style it every day, so I just wear a hat.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
That's an interesting quality because you're getting to do what you really enjoy. And I think it really shows in who you are as a person. We've gotten to know each other pretty well from coming into some of these Back to Business Network tours at Burt Mill Creek, and just as a regular customer that comes in because you're part of our neighborhood fabric, some of the events and stuff that we've done that are neighborhood-based events. And I love the fact that you bring your kids with you, and it's a family affair. And a lot of the things that we do at Burnt Mill Creek are really designed for our neighbors and to be part of that neighborhood fabric that's so, so important.
Disclaimer: I don't bring them late at night. I come for the food. I come for the food truck. We take our bikes. You've seen our bikes, and they love just hanging out. There's other kids there too, which is great. You're doing a good thing, and you feed us every Thursday night with.
I love making their Shirley Temples. I absolutely love it because it reminds me of my own daughters, and I get to see another business owner like myself that has to adapt, and you have to be a dad and a business owner at the same time. You can't just push pause and say, I'm going to separate from business and go be a dad. You have to do both at the same time a lot of the time. And that's not easy for everybody to do. Jason's in the same boat. He's got other side businesses outside of his job with one of the biggest lending institutions in America here in Wilmington, and he's often got to do the same thing where he brings his daughter along with him as well.
Well, for me, I just being an entrepreneur and starting my business, it's a legacy thing. It's not necessarily even about me. It's to have the schedule and the freedom to do. I am a single dad, and just having the freedom to be with my kids when I want to, and knowing that I'm doing a lot of hard work now so that I don't have to later. So it's fun, and it's scary and it's risky, but I'm kind of addicted to being a business owner. It's fun.
So that kind of even ties into the question that we usually get into about 3 or 4 segments into the show, but that's what drives you. I mean, obviously family is super important. I've only met you for a few minutes now, but already knowing that family is that important. For the businesses that you have, Life Stage Films and Harvest Filmworks, which one was born first?
So you guys were talking about giving back. I started my business right out of college, so I've never actually worked for anybody else.
Again, envy. Go ahead.
Well, but with that said, I was poor for a really, really long time, and because I mean,
wait a second, you mean business owners aren't all rich?
No, you have to know that there's a season of your life. There's a season for everything. And I knew that I was going to do a ton of hard work, and I was working. And to be perfectly honest, being a business owner is not for everybody. And it affected relationships. It affected my marriage. It affected things that you just don't know until you get there.
One of our first shows, actually our very first show was exactly that. Was how is it like being a business owner and then the relationships that you have with the people at home? And I'm so glad that you brought that up, because that has been something that has really resonated in almost every single one of our shows, not just with ourselves and our family members, but ourselves and our employees as well. It's a difficult thing to do. Owning a business is hard.
So and it's tough to get a guy when you have a passion for something, it's tough to get that out of your head. So for me, so backing it up to answer your question, Jason, I actually went overseas after college, and I served in this nonprofit, and that's where I fell in love with video. I didn't study video in college. I don't even remember what I learned in college. I studied business, but it's not real life. So I lived in Mexico for about a year, and worked for this. I actually worked for an orphanage, and that's when they had this story to tell, and I was like, well, I got this camera. I'll just make a video. It's easy. And I fell in love with telling a story. Looking back at the video, it's terrible. Like it's awful. But when we moved back, I was like, oh, I have to do this. Like I have to. This is what I want to do with my life. I just know it, and you can't tell a guy that. You can't tell anybody that, whether you're a guy or whoever. So we moved back. I was already poor. I was like, what do we have to lose? I'll just start a business. And so I started with weddings, and I was like, oh, wedding videos suck. Like you look around, you're like, they're terrible. I can do this. And so I just sought out the high end. Since then I just sought out the high end wedding stuff. And that's what we did. We did Destiny. I've been all over the world, and I still do that. However, we transitioned into corporate stuff because companies need a way to be human. Most websites, most companies are very rigid, very like, we want to tell a story. Every company has a story to tell, and if you're going to work for that company, you need to know their story too. So we have learned from weddings how to tell an awesome story with. We don't do commercials. We don't do TV commercials. We do brand films. We do stuff like that with Harvest. So.
And the thing is, no matter what, even if we were live and you were telling the story in front of people, people can tell that passion because it seems like it's something you cared about and you created it into your own. And that's the message that we try to bring everybody. For listeners out there, we're talking with Matt Davis of Life Stage Films and Harvest Filmworks here on the Big Talker 106.7 Dollars and Sense. Welcome back to Dollars and Sense here on the Big Talker 106.7. I'm Jason Hayes with Hunter Ford. We're speaking with Matt Davis of Life Stage Films and Harvest Filmworks. Matt, you were in the beginning part of talking about where that passion of really seeing something that you could be a part of and bringing it to light to be a business and falling in love with that to make Life Stage Films kind of grow into what it is. Tell us a little bit more about those early stages of that business.
I don't like to waste my own time, so I've realized as a creative, and I'm a creative. I'm a business owner, but I'm also creative, and that's tough when you're creative. Most creatives don't know how to run a business, and so I knew from the beginning. One of the best books I've ever read is the ebook, the E-Myth Revisited. That's a great book about just duplicating yourself. Is really what I knew from the beginning, because I knew that I couldn't do everything. However, I didn't have the money to hire anybody at the beginning, so I had to do everything myself. And so in the beginning, I knew I had the talent. And again, I hate my work 6 months ago. Looking back 10 years ago, it's even worse. But at the time, I was loving what I was doing, but I was working 100 hours a week. And, when you have a home studio, when you have an office in your house, there's never really a time where you're not working.
Sure.
You'd be watching a movie and be like, all right, I'm going to go check and see if this video's done rendering, or I got to go check this email. And I was always on. And I realized that's not going to, I got burned out pretty fast. And so in the beginning, I wasn't really charging what I was worth. I was just, I actually took pride in knowing I would even say like, oh, I'm booked up this year. Great. Well, it's probably because I was cheap. Like I wasn't charging what I was worth.
Yeah.
And that caught up to me. It caught up in a way that I had backlog. And if, for those that aren't video producers or editors or, filmmakers, it just means like I had a ton of work sitting there waiting because I was filling up my calendar because I could. Like I had the recognition, but I learned I got burned out. Like I was the editor, I was the salesperson, I was the office manager, I was the filmmaker. I was gone every weekend. I was here, there. And then once I started having kids, I didn't want to be gone every weekend. And so that's when I kind of transitioned into, well, wait a second. The stuff that I've learned from weddings, and if hopefully you guys can agree with me if you're listening, like when you think of wedding videos, you're like, oh, like most of them are cheesy, they're boring, they're terrible. And we didn't want to do that. So I learned how to have my own style, and that was attractive. And wedding videos and wedding films have come a long way. But what I learned doing weddings immediately translated into telling stories for companies and making it human, in a sense that I didn't want to be the guy that did the local TV commercials like, come on down to Larry's Auto Mart. Like this just wasn't my passion. And so I knew. First
of all, Larry's Auto Mart is a great business. That's where I get my car serviced. I
just made that. I just made that up because there are some great car. Don't come find me, guys. There's some great cars in town. But.
And Matt, let me interject for a second. One of the messages that you said in one of the first parts of that is the forever changing method, like something about not liking your work or not necessarily being happy or satisfied with your work 6 months ago. That's something I think is a great message that we've shared, and Hunter has shared himself in past shows, of always wanting to evolve and for people to stay in a norm. There's been businesses, one that stands out to me is the Kodaks of the world, that refuse to evolve. And I don't know if you ever see any Kodak things out there anymore, but it doesn't exist because of things have changed. So being proud of your work and enough to evolve, I think, is very important to our listeners and ones that want to get out there to be your own critic for sure, but let that create more passion for a different change.
If I could give anybody one piece of advice, if you're just starting out a business, it's don't be stagnant, don't be cocky, because when you think that you're the man, when you think that you're the best on the block, that's when you fall. That's when you when you're not on when you rest on your laurels, you're like, that's a thing, right? That's a
it is now.
Yeah. When you rest on your laurels, I think that's a.
I'm gonna create a T-shirt.
But you also have to have a certain drive, and that's a quality that not everybody has. We had kind of touched on at the beginning of the show that not everybody is for business, and it isn't easy to have the inspiration and the motivation to get out there and to try something, to go ahead and climb the high dive and jump off. And, sometimes you splash and make a big, awesome splash of water. And sometimes you belly flop and it hurts.
I've made a ton of mistakes. I can tell you, I can talk all night if you want me to about the mistakes that I've made, but I've learned from them because I took risks. And if you're going to be a business owner, you have to be okay with taking risks. You have to be courageous. Being in business is not for the faint of heart. It's something that you have to just know before you even start. Like, this is going to be tough for a while, so that I can have the life that I want. There's freedom involved in entrepreneurship if you put the right people in place. I want to talk real quick. I am my own competition. Like, I have competitors in town. I'm friends with my competitors. I have beers with them, but I'm not competing against them because there's plenty of business to go around. So if you're afraid of your competition, that's a hard issue. That's something that it's something you have to deal with, because
you're defeating yourself.
Yeah. There's plenty of bars. There's plenty of places that have music. There's plenty of surf shops, but you can't be afraid of that, because that's going to mess up. It's going to be a head issue. It's going to mess you up. And so my biggest competition is myself. And I'm constantly saying, what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? And as a business owner, you have to know, and I'm terrible at this, knowing your numbers, knowing what's going on. And luckily I have a CPA. I'm not an accountant, because I know you have to put people in place. You have to put them in the right seats. I am not good at that. So I'm going to hire someone that's really good at that. That's what I messed up with at the beginning. I was doing everything, and it caught up to me. So that's my biggest thing, is knowing where your role is and knowing that your competition's not really your competition. It should be yourself.
Wow. Well, you're a walking billboard for inspiration. When I'm feeling God inspired, just keep talking. But you said something to the effect of working hard to know where you're going to get, making those sacrifices. And I know that we spoke off air briefly, and you felt comfortable enough to share. That meant some sacrifice for your family as well.
Yeah. Well, I learned the hard way. I went through divorce, and I would say a lot of it is selfishness. A lot of it is maybe being married to my business. And that's something that I would say is a mistake that I would not wish on anybody else. Of course, there was a lot involved in that. However, knowing boundaries, knowing that you need to turn off. One of the biggest things I've learned as an entrepreneur is recharging, knowing when to turn off and turn it back on, knowing to take a weekend off and not think about work. Don't turn your email on, turn your phone off, like have time with your family. And I didn't know that in the beginning because I didn't know any better, because I was so immersed in building this thing, and it became like I was married to it. And that sucks, because there are sacrifices. So I would tell someone, if you are just starting out, or maybe I'm speaking to the person that's been in business for 5 years and you're thinking, yeah, wow, I need to make some changes. Like, don't go down that road.
Matt, I have been in business for 10 years, and I am not going home after this show, because my wife is going to repeat everything that you just said.
Sorry, man. I'm sorry for throwing her in the bus there.
But
sorry.
One of the other things that you brought up about risks is you didn't take careless risks. You made calculated risks. And when you have a really good idea and you get inspiration from other people, it's a lot easier to calculate that risk and to make it into something that you can turn into business instead of just throwing darts at the wall and seeing what sticks. In those early years, what was something that worked really good for you? Like what niche in the wedding business did you carve out that really worked the best for you?
It's, you're throwing me a curveball there.
Was it kind of the relationships?
It was relationships. That's exactly what I was going to say. It's about connecting with the right people. And it's not even, I say networking, but it's not networking in the sense that, you go down and put a sticker on, like a name tag on, and have a beer at the local, Chamber of Commerce thing. That's not networking. It's, hey, let's go to coffee. Let's have a beer. How can I help you? I learned that, like, when I would go and approach other people and say, how can I help you grow your business? They would reciprocate. They would do the same thing, because we're all in this together. And it's something where you can't just say, what can I get out of this relationship? How can I help somebody? Because they're going to do the same thing for you. And so there's a group of people that we help each other. And there's also people that come to us and say, how can you help me? Well, I don't know. I don't know you. Like, you have to have relationships, and that's what it's all about.
So building that rapport and kind of building that community, again, that's what our show has been catered to for so many weeks now. And so you painting that picture is incredible for you and to embody, again, the weeks of conversation that we've had with plenty of business owners as well. We're sitting here with Matt Davis of Life Stage Films and Harvest Filmworks, and sharing such an incredible story of the beginning and where he's at now. I think we're going to carry the story on and probably have a little bit extra on. Just kind of a reminder to join us on our Facebook page, Dollars and Sense ILM, see a little bit behind the scenes, some pictures of what our mugs look like, and we'll go from there. So again, Big Talker 106.7, Dollars and Sense.
Welcome back to Dollars and Sense on Wilmington's Big Talker 106.7. Jason Hayes and Hunter Ford. We're talking to Matt Davis of Life Stage Films and Harvest Filmworks. Life Stage Films is more of a wedding videography, and Harvest Filmworks is more of a commercial enterprise. Matt, tell the listening audience a little bit about how you made the transition from doing weddings to doing commercial film works.
Well, I have 2 daughters, so they're getting older. I have a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old. They're going to be 6 and 9 in a couple months, man.
Holy cow.
Yeah. Gosh. So they're in school now. They're in school year round, so they've already started school, and it's crazy to see them grow up. But with that said, the more they grow up, the more time I want to spend with them. Like, I'm building a business, right? Like, I'm building it so that I can spend time with them. And I've surrounded myself, and I don't think I've touched on this yet, but I've surrounded myself with people. I learned a long time ago when I got burned out to put people in the driver's seat, like, way better than I am. So there's filmmakers that I have on my staff. I have 4 people full time, and I have about 3 or 4 subcontractors, freelancers, that are way better at things than I am. Like, and that's good. That's okay for me to admit, because it's not just about me. I freaked out a couple years ago because I was doing weddings. That's all I did. Well, what if I broke a leg, or what if I got sick, or what if I got the flu, and I had to show up? Like, I need to have people that I trust in place. So once that started happening, and I was able to duplicate myself and have people that are way better editors than I am, I was able to start seeing, like, wait a second. So I don't have to shoot weddings every weekend. And the knowledge that I learned of just filming human elements, like, I love. People say, like, oh, I was always afraid of, like, shaking someone's hand, like, hey, I'm a wedding videographer. Like, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be able to tell stories and tell films. And so I've traveled to Italy and Australia and Costa Rica and Paris and all over the country, New York, San Francisco, for weddings. Well, I started realizing these families that I serve, they own businesses. So I was like, whoa, wait a second. Like, I know how to tell a story. I know how to make a company or a family, I can humanize it. Well, most commercials are not really human. It's more of a sales pitch. And that's not what we do at Harvest Filmworks. We humanize a company so that people understand what it's like to work there and what it's like to be served by that company. Well, guess what? I realized that I love telling stories during the week while my kids are in school, and I can see them when they come back from school, and I'm not gone on the weekends. And so, of course, I travel quite a bit for Harvest, but I learned that like families needed and companies needed stories to be told, but I can do that during the week and not be gone every weekend. We still do both, and I still shoot weddings. I love it. I get hired to go to parties and film happy people. That's great.
Where did a lot of those first customers come from? Did they lateraled over from the people that you were already shooting with? So
Yeah. Like, you know, I mean, gosh, the father of the bride, I learned, like, you know, oh, this guy owns a steel company in Asheville, you know. Oh, cool. Well, guess what? I checked them out. They didn't have a video. Hey, man, you loved your daughter's wedding film. We can tell the same story for your company. Oh my gosh, I never thought about that. And so that's kind of how it started.
Because I know you off air before we got started, I brought up the video from your Harvest Filmworks, or is it harvestfilms.com?
Harvest Filmworks.
Harvestfilmworks.com, and let Jason get to see your video that you have that is almost like your sales pitch to people that are looking to hire your services. And it's incredible. It's like a mini movie in just a brief amount of time that tells so much about what you can do and what somebody could hire you to do. And that's really important as a business owner to be able to offer that to somebody. Do you have to advertise, or is most of your work word of mouth now?
It's networking. It's relationships, like we talked about. It's not. I don't advertise. I don't do magazine ads. I don't do any of that stuff. You go out and you meet people. So, for instance, I'm just trying to give advice here for other entrepreneurs that might be listening. If you've done work for somebody and that you did a great job and they're happy, just simply ask that person, ask that CEO or the president, like, hey, you loved your film, right? Or you loved this product that I just provided you. Do you have 2 or 3 other people that you would know that might benefit from the same thing? Example here. I'm getting ahead of myself. We once a year we give back. So you mentioned at the beginning, like we give back 1 film a year. Like we say, we do a competition. Like, hey, what story needs to be told? And it's usually back, you know, listening to my story. You know, I started working in Mexico and an orphanage. I love nonprofits. So locally, we've done stuff for Nourish and See. You can check their film out. We've done that. Hometown Hires, getting felons. You know, it's hard for them to get a job. We did a film with the DA on just having non-violent felons get them work because they want to get work for their families. We've done that film. So with that said, I have learned. Oh man, I forgot what I was saying.
You've learned a lot. You've learned a lot from these different people that have inspired you to continue to grow, and that's so important because what's resonated with each different business owner is that they work hard and they're inspired by their own work, and that's what seems to continue to pop up in these conversations that we have with different business owners is that you're inspired by yourself and you want to grow because you're passionate about what you do.
Well, for us, when I say we give back and knowing that we don't really have to, we get referrals. So we network the right way. We meet the right people. But I want to push back a little bit on what you said. I hate the word sales pitch. I hate that thing, that stigma. And that's not what we do. I've actually transitioned into a consulting role. I have another company called Studio Sherpas that is it's educational based for other filmmakers and creatives that don't really know the business side of things. Sherpa is a guide. It's a mountain guide. So that's kind of where we came up with that idea. But it translates into my other businesses, Life Stage Films and Harvest. We don't pitch people. We guide people. We might not be the best fit. We might not be the right person for the job. And that's okay. One of the biggest things I learned about burnout is knowing that not every customer is my customer. Like, I love hearing no. I love every no you hear, every 10 no's you hear, you're going to get that one yes. And that's our client. The people out there that think that every person is your client, you're barking up. It's not the right way to do business. You have to know your ideal client. You have to know who you're serving. You have to know what you're doing. And I didn't know that in the beginning. And that, just kind of circling back, I just thought, oh, I got a phone call. Cool. I can do video.
Yeah, whatever you want, whatever
Yeah.
you want. See,
And-
Matt, that's what just kind of goes into the fact of you're chasing with your heart and passion for longevity for you, for your family, and not necessarily chasing whatever dollar that sniffs up and calls you right away. So that makes a huge difference for even that community you're talking about. There's other people, I mean, guys that we've interviewed here on the show that are in the same wheelhouse, but you guys are buddies, and you guys, share the wealth, because there is plenty of us being a destination place for a lot of weddings and events and a lot of the startup businesses that are happening here. But I think just having that compassion alone is, I think, what's going to make the difference in some longevity for you.
When your heart's in it, when your competition knows that your heart's in it, and if their heart's in it, like I share gear, I share, if I'm booked, I'll send leads their way. Like you cannot be afraid of that. And when you are, you're pigeonholing yourself. You're not gonna survive. And that's something that I've always appreciated is there is plenty of work to go around. Not every person is your client. And this person that I'm talking to, I've actually had to fire a wealth, they might have the money, but I don't want to work. If it's not a good fit, I'm not going to be able to deliver what I know that I can deliver if I'm not feeling a connection. It's almost like speed dating. Like
You've been humble and you've done a lot of giving back. It's really awesome that you give one back a year. Have you had people take advantage of that? Have you had people that expected you to continue to give to them?
Yeah. And I can't necessarily fault them, but you have to put your foot down. You have to put food on the table. So yeah, we've done work for free, and that's okay to an extent. Like if, in the sense that my time is valuable, my work is valuable. I know my worth. I know what our work is worth. But we still love to give back. However, we have had people come back and say, hey, we got this new thing going on. Can you come back and do it again? Yeah, sure. It's based on what we've done in the past. It's this much. Oh yeah. Well, we were kind of hoping that you would kind of, well, yeah, I'm
It'll
not
be
a charity.
really good for your career.
You'll get some great exposure.
Yeah, well,
that's
trust
the biggest
me, I'm already
lie,
exposed. Yeah, tell me about it. But I will say, I mean, for some of the work, and if I can name drop on one thing you were mentioning again off air with the stuff with the work for Biddy and Bose, knowing them from my career path and helping them set up the tone for their banking side of things. What a great story to share, and just that alone for the national exposure that way that they've been able to get, knowing that you're behind the scenes of some of the beginning parts of their story is pretty cool.
Oh, I love that family. Like we've done some things for them, and we've done things for the Special Olympics that have raised awareness in ways that photos or a website just couldn't do. Video is that tool that gets the message out.
We're going to continue this story after the commercial break here on Dollars on Sense and Wilmington's Big Talker 106.7.
Welcome back to Dollars and Sense here on the Big Talker 106.7. Jason Hayes, Hunter Ford. We have a great guest that we've been able to have an amazing conversation with about his journey through his business, Life Stage Films and Harvest Filmworks, Matt Davis. Matt, you were sharing with us giving back and kind of sharing that story of where that passion comes in and sharing with that community, having that fellowship with your fellow so-called competitors out there, and really just bringing it back home and just kind of identifying the fact that if you don't work together, then it's all for naught anyway. Made mention of the Biddies and Bose thing and their great family and the great work that they're doing for our community. You were going into a little bit of kind of the the kind of donation side of your work and what kind of exposure that's bringing. And tell us a little bit more about doing the work for a group like that and where it led into doing some stuff for the Special Olympics.
I've always felt that I needed to give back at least once a year. Someone needs a story told that might not be able to afford it. And I love having a camera in my hand. I love telling a story. So that's never been an issue for me. Some people are like, well, why are you giving it away for free? It's not necessarily, I get more out of it than they do. Like it's something that I get. It's not free. It's valuable to me. However, when you do that, other people see it. It's good exposure in the sense that like some people might see this film, and I might go off the path here, but like it's a passion project. And passion projects are okay. As a creative or anybody that might be running a business, like do something that you're passionate about. And if you don't have the work coming in, if your pipeline's not full as an entrepreneur, do something that makes you come alive. And that's something that was born of like this once a year, like, you know, what really started for us with Life Stage, it's seasonal. There's times of the year where we don't really have a lot of work going on. Now that's not true because we do commercials and we do brand films and identity films for other companies. But when we started, it was like, well, our gear's just sitting on the shelf. What can we do with this gear that can impact other people's lives? And that's kind of how it started.
Now, Matt, is there a way that kind of a forum that you maybe give people to either ask or something to where they can kind of volunteer their story to you to accommodate to get that, or kind of a competition between people if they...
Yeah, it's a competition. So usually in like February or March, we'll just announce it on our Facebook page and be like, hey, what story needs to be told? Do you know a company? Do you know an individual? Do you know a business that might need their story told? Tell us why they deserve their story told. And it's great because people come together. They're like, oh man, this company needs this, or a company might say, you know, we need this. Now, we pick people that know. We of course filter through and we kind of observe what's being submitted. And for instance, Nourish and See, we did that a couple years ago. It's a food bank in town. If you guys don't know about it,
very familiar. Oh yeah, I give a lot of donation time with them with the bank that I work with. We're true believers in their group. So good job.
Well, they don't have the money,
Right.
They don't. So, but they need their story told. So that's the kind of thing we gravitate, towards. And so we knew that was, and other people were chiming in like, yeah, Nourish, yeah. So that's how we pick it. And man, I was enriched, like just filming that. But by doing that, you're connected with other people in town. Like, oh, we saw that Nourish and See video. Check this out. We need this done. And it's connections, it's networking, it's relationships.
Giving back doesn't just end with you providing one film a year for somebody that needs it. You also are a mentor, and the whole Studio Sherpas thing that you had brought up before is really important. Your podcast teaches other creatives how to put their creative mind to business and put it to work. Explain a little bit to the listening audience what it is that Studio Sherpas does, and then again, how they can access it.
Studio Sherpas was born out of, I've been teaching, a little history here with Life Stage Films. I did kind of swim upstream. Like most wedding videos did suck. And we got noticed by our stuff, and I was able to speak at conferences and workshops 8 or 9 years ago. And I just fell in love with teaching. I fell in love with, there's something that I know, one thing that someone else doesn't know, and mistakes. Stupid stuff that I've done that other people can learn from so that they don't have to go through it is kind of the premise of where me teaching came from. I love helping other people avoid my pitfalls and my struggles. So Studio Sherpas, a Sherpa is a mountain guide. Like I said, I love showing other entrepreneurs, and I'm a filmmaker, but most creatives, or even it's most entrepreneurs that are listening they love their craft. They started the business because they love this thing, but they didn't really sign up for the business side of things. So that whole monster is created, and most of us that start a business understand that like once it's a snowball effect. It's like, oh man, what have I done? Like I can't even focus on the thing that I love because I don't know how to run the business side of things. So that's what Studio Sherpas is, and we teach selling. It's guiding, and that's why a Sherpa is a guide.
Yeah,
helping people avoid the pitfalls. And so, man, I'm addicted to that. I have a podcast myself, but I teach. We do webinars. We have courses that we do, but it's helping creatives, whether you're a graphic artist, a photographer, a filmmaker, a web designer. It's all relative. It's all the same thing, and we teach people how to run their business profitably so that they can do what they love to do.
How can the listening audience access this information?
StudioSherpas.com is my my creative, and you can find the podcast on there. You can go to iTunes and just search Studio Sherpas. We have a podcast as well. And then we have articles. If you follow our Facebook page, we do inspirational stuff. It doesn't even have anything to do with filmmaking usually. It's just the struggles of being an entrepreneur. And that's something that everybody can relate to if you own your own business.
So Matt, and again, for people that can't see, you're just a dude. Like if in any sense of where you're a dude, backwards hat, you can tell that you have such passion and love for what you do. Mid-30s, just putting yourself out there. I think the biggest message that I, again, out of that, what you said, is creating this message of people that have this passion and love what they do. That's really what they're doing with the Studio Sherpas, is you're teaching them how to not unlove it after they get overwhelmed with the business. So I think that's so important, because again, that's why there's business partners a lot of times, and in marriages, boyfriend, girlfriend, everything, they're not the same. That way they can cater to both things. So I think you've been able to not necessarily master, but cater to from your own mistakes is really important to bring that in front of a lot of other future entrepreneurs.
I could talk all night about my mistakes. I'm glad we didn't. So
that's round 2.
It's easy, but to be humble and to be able to teach other people when you've gone through experiences and you've burnt out and that you've overworked yourself and you've worked too hard. Do you have any regrets in business? Is there anything that you regret over the last several years that you wish you could take back or do differently? That's always a hard question when we throw that curveball.
Hitting the feels. Okay. Yeah, I do. I regret spending too much time on my business. You have to have most people that are in business are their you're your own boss. So you don't have to report to anybody. You can go to work in your pajamas. You can not brush your teeth until 3 p.m. Like, you don't have to. I'm talking from experience.
You can put it off another day.
So the thing is you get used to that, and that's dangerous. It's dangerous to not be held accountable. And for the longest time, I was not. So I surrounded myself with people that I wanted to be like. So there's other business owners in town that are mentors and counselors to me, because we all struggle with the same thing. It's almost like a board of directors. Like, hey, I'm struggling with this, but I didn't have that. And you think when you start your business, like, oh man, I'm free. In reality, you're a slave if you don't do it the right way. And so I do regret putting my business before, my marriage, my kids. I mean, I've done it. My friends. Being a workaholic is not being successful. It's being busy is not being successful. Having a schedule, mapping out your week, and knowing what you can get done and what you can't, and then signing off, going on the boat on the weekend, going to church, having a day at the park, and then coming back to work on Monday ready to go again is something I had to learn the hard way.
So finding that balance is the most important thing. And I know that even sharing stories with Hunter as a successful quote unquote business owner is that same struggle. I mean, it is tough. Even myself, I have some side businesses that I do that aren't any high level by any means, but I was addicted to finding that guidance almost as an escape. I mean, got all these personal problems going on. Guess what? I'll go to work and it's going to somehow disappear, which is completely the wrong way to look at things. So again, just being able to share your story with us today for those pitfalls, and being able to share the fact that it's not all glamorous. It's not painted this great picture. I'm a business owner. I'm the man. Everything's perfect. It's a daily struggle, and I'm glad that you've been able here to share us with us today.
I went through some major things in my life, and I know, real quick before we go, surrounding yourself with people that are better than you, that's the biggest thing. Getting me through my personal struggles and things that I had to do in life, my business would have not survived if I didn't have the people that I put in place. And that's what you have to do. You cannot think that you can do everything yourself as an entrepreneur.
That's perfect. Matt, thank you so much. On behalf of Hunter Ford, the Big Talker, myself, Jason Hayes, man, we super, super appreciative of your time that you had with us today, and great story. So again, for Dollars and Sense, Big Talker 106.7, we'll see you next week.
Making dollars make sense.